Hello! Today I'm gonna read this Finnish blog post that is in English and give my thoughts on that some of the subjects. This is actually very well written and kinda interesting. I think it's about this social justice warrior thing coming into Finland, these ideas and thoughts, and I think I'm going to agree with some points and whatever, but I'm also gonna have a disagreement with some points, so let's just go right into it. On becoming white, Finland, equality and overcoming bad history lessons. 17th of the 5th, 2016 by Terike Haapoja. I grew up in a world where race was not discussed. Living in an isolated village in rural Finland in the 80s, I eagerly waited for my next weekly dose of Madonna, Michael Jackson, Bill Cosby, fame or whatever new cool thing was smuggled on our way with 6-month delay. No, well, I would rather say that there was like a 2 or 3 year delay if you think about at least like TV series, etc. But I can give you that. Like, I don't know, maybe I think that, for example, if you think about these series that were shown in Finnish television in the 90s, like Friends and Simpsons and Love and Married and stuff like that, I think they were many years behind, but like maybe, I don't know, 2010, something like Game of Thrones first season is aired actually 6 months on the later, but like, yeah, whatever, I mean at least I think maybe these music things and such could actually be coming sooner to Finland, so nothing to complain about that. I don't think the 11-year-old me understood that Michael Jackson was black or that Madonna was white or whether such things made any difference. The only thing they represented to me was the big world, something to which I was deprived access. And if you are saying that you were colorblind when you were young, then I think that was a good thing. And I would say same about me when I was living in rural parts of Finland in the 80s. I actually was born in 85 and I lived my youngster years in Kauhajoki, so 15,000 people living in this rural part of the Finland, in the town I lived in. So the Finland I grew up in was a strange place. Geographically isolated and sparsely populated, the country had only one newspaper, one state-run news station and one official cultural mindset. Well, the country had only one newspaper, that is just Palks. I actually used to work in a museum here in Tampere, so if we just quickly look, Aamulehti, which even in Kauhajoki, which is Osterbotnia, Etelä-Pohjanmaa, so very far from Tampere, even if it is a Tampere magazine, was started at 1881, and when I was young, people our family knew were ordering this to Kauhajoki because this was and is quite respected magazine even outside Tampere somewhat. Turun Sanomat started 1904, Helsingin Sanomat started let's see, when did it start? So it started 1889, so definitely in the 90s in Finland there were a lot of magazines, so I call total bullshit on that, but anyway, let's continue. All enveloped in the culture of silence and fear of difference. Because there was hardly any ethnic diversity, there was no political correctness either, and thank God for that. Explicit racial stereotypes were freely exploited in marketing and the media. And yeah, I can accept that people were really insensitive before in some situations, but like we will probably disagree what is exploiting racial stereotypes or whatever and stuff like that, but I can believe that there were some oversights happening in the 90s. I didn't really pay attention so that I would remember really any examples, but I can buy that. I think in Finland, I think in United States, whatever, if we go 20 years back, 30 years back, then there has been people with backdated ideals, and that sometimes goes into the media and such, so that can totally happen. In the absence of actual conflicts between people, such stereotyping was considered harmless by the establishment. References to hotel cultures were prepped with colonialist attitudes or outright racist imaginary, black faces, feather headdresses, exotism and orientalism, which people justified with the argument that everybody knew that they weren't really racist and therefore could joke about it in private, i.e. within Finland's national borders. Well, I think that people can joke about stuff, and I know which this is referring to, like somewhat like that there were these kind of overreactions and some happenings that people discussed and maybe even slipped into media, and people were really kind of open about it and talk about it. But I don't know if it's really a problem, but let's continue. There was no need for cultural sensitivity or minority perspectives because obviously there were none. This was of course an illusion. The Roma and Sami were so small in numbers that they had almost no political presentation, but both of these Finnish minorities were highly visible as objects of cultural appropriation and ridicule in the mainstream media. This also was generally considered harmless. Well, no one is yet to show me any actual harm that comes from this these attitudes, but yeah, I remember like some sketch programs in the 90s, for example, that made fun of Sami people, Saamelaiset, and stuff like that. But we would really need to, I think, closely examine those examples, and I could give you more information. Certainly, I don't think all the situations were racist or bad, but it's there were some like, I don't think cultural appropriation is right word, because I don't think there is a thing like cultural appropriation. All around in human history, people have developed ideas from cultures. Like, for example, maybe some culture in the Eastern Europe comes out with a sausage, and some other culture adapts that and adds cheese to it and gets a really cool German sausage or whatever. Like, it's not, I don't think it's cultural appropriation if you appreciate something other cultures have and either use that in a positive way, like make it mainstream and start selling that kind of food or whatever, or then expand on it and make it even better with your own ideas. Like, if we think about, for example, thing that when we talk about cultural appropriation comes very often into centerpieces, dreadlocks, like that black people should only wear dreadlocks. Like, why? Egyptians had them before, other cultures also have dreadlocks, so why should dreadlocks be for black people only? Like, aren't they culturally appropriating some other culture then when they claim that they have the right to these dreadlocks or whatever? So I think mostly cultural appropriation is really bullshit. It just basically tries to say that inventions done by white people are up for grabs for anyone and it's not a problem and no one will care. And then inventions or ideas that come from other cultures, if white people happen to be interested in them or use them or whatever, like, I don't know, white rapper shaking her ass or whatever, white female rapper, then that's cultural appropriation. So give me a break. It seems very, very obscure and just like hating on white people. Yes, this was also was generally considered harmless. Yes. Today's Finland is of course a different place in many respects. The number of foreigners living in our country has climbed from 0.5% in the 1990s to nearly 4%. That is still ridiculously small number. Okay, you say it's a ridiculously small number, and I think one reason for it to be a ridiculously small number is that we are not really in the center of Europe. We are kind of up there in the north and not maybe that easily accessible or whatever. So what would you suppose is a better number? Please give me a number. Should it be 30% foreigners? Should it be 50% foreigners? Should it be open borders and let everyone in until everyone has same amount of poverty, or what do you mean? Why is 4% ridiculously small number? Please explain this. First and second generation Finns are rightfully owning the culture and generating sorely needed discussion on plurality, while also being vocal on the problem of structural discrimination that the majority culture has been reluctant to address. Media platforms are now deemed accountable and discriminative content is not accepted by public policies. I think this is what you want. Yet simultaneously with the rise of the right wing and outright fascist politics that are sweeping Europe, and with the dislocation of masses of people in the face of war, the country has witnessed a rapid explosion of xenophobia and racism on a whole new level. Well, I call bullshit on this. I haven't seen really the rise of right-wing politics here in Finland due to this crisis of immigration happening right now. In fact, actually, I was reading just the other day that by the polls, Perussuomalaiset, which is one big party that is against immigration, is actually having lowest numbers of voters according to polls, like in a long time. So I don't really see this rise of right-wingers. I haven't seen any new parties or anything. I know feminists and cultural Marxists and these social justice activists, they like to always point out how the right wing, right fascists, they are just everywhere and it's growing and whatever, but please show proof, because I haven't seen any. On the contrary, actually, I'm sometimes debated should I talk about this, because people who address these things, even if they are saying reasonable things and explaining their thought process and explaining their ideas, they might be called racist. They might be called bigoted, Islamophobic, etc., just for pointing out their opinions. So I think many people are afraid of that and such don't voice their opinions. And if this, that you deny the voices of people's opinions, will then later years, like next year, in 5 next years or whatever, there will be this rise of right-wingers, there's rise of right-wing politics in Finland, then you have yourself to blame, because you started to censor freedom of speech, you started to try to make it so that only your political idea is correct, politically correct, and only thing you can say. And there will be backlash to it. There will be in time backlash to it, like we can see in Germany, we can see in other places in Europe. But I don't think we still have it in Finland, but who knows, who knows. So, a crisis of morals and attitudes that by any standards are far more dangerous and far more destructive than the refugee crisis. Well, we'll just agree to disagree on that. While US Republican politicians are liberally using dehumanizing language similar to that of an European right wing, there is a specific tone to the Finnish discourse that I want to address here, namely the illusion that we have never been a racist society and that Finland as a nation has nothing to do with colonial past of the Western world. Well, I have to just point out that we haven't had the kind of discrimination that United States have for black people. We haven't had that there are only places in buses where only white people can go and other places where only black people go, or that kind of segregation. So in that way we haven't been a racist society. But let's explore this idea more and see where you are going with it. When I first came to the USA few years ago, someone would tease me by asking if there really were any black people in Finland. Of course there are, I would reply, but deep down I had hesitations. The underlying question was whether one would encounter racism upon visiting the country. To that question, I had no answer at the time. I knew that everybody I interacted with was anti-racist in the same unquestioned way that everyone around me was anti-sexist. But as a woman, I had learned that this doesn't necessarily mean that the world isn't sexist. The thing was that the white Finns were rarely forced to confront or register our whiteness, and thus also racism had remained in a large part invisible to us. Oh boy, so something that is invisible has to exist. I see this a lot with feminists, like everything is sexist, everything is problematic, everything is misogynistic, but then there is no proof of actually these things being a real thing. Whiteness is a construct that has been developed in order to justify existing power relations in global and local politics. Citations needed. How is whiteness a construct when you are born into white? I think this is where it starts to go a little bit weird, because I think that you just use whiteness in every sentence the way that it fits you. It's something that you are born with, it's something that you are, then it's just a construct, whatever suits your argumentation at the moment. But I don't believe whiteness is a construct. So it's unscientific, undergrounded and arbitrary, and therefore can include or reject groups of people as benefits the prevailing dynamics of power. The Irish were once non-white, as were the Jewish. Now it seems Muslims are becoming non-white in the Western world. Well, let me just ask this first: that when were Muslims white? Like that they are now becoming non-white, or are you just meaning that Finnish people who have the Islam faith that are actually white are now becoming non-white? Because I don't think that makes sense. I have a Muslim friend, and I don't think he feels that he feels any kind of persecution on that. I think, yes, the Muslims, immigrations you might have a point there that they are feeling some kind of discrimination. But please show that to me. But if that happens, then how are they becoming non-white? When were they white? And another thing is that Irish were once non-white. I think only people who think that Irish were once non-white are you, because you like to peddle with this idea that white people were never in the history persecuted, they were never slaves, they had never these bad things that minorities have. But if you go with that, then you have to really disregard Irish as white, because Irish people have been persecuted, they have had like that some job opportunities have been not given to them because they are Irish, they have been as slaves, etc. There is still the Arabian slave trade going on and being there. Like every civilization in the history of the world has had slaves. Okay? White people are no different in that aspect. And you just peddle this. I know it's kind of like, it's very appealing to peddle this idea that white people are the devil and done all these bad things, because I remember from high school, I remember from college that if you go through the history that we are learned in school, like from the I don't know, Renaissance to Finnish independent wars to Second World War and Columbus finding America and everything, it's really well painted because we have this European narrative on the or even you can say white narrative on the history that is taught us to school. We can just see, oh my God, all these white peoples our history we were studying did all these bad things. But then, where was the chapter about the Arabian slave trade? Where was the chapter about the Irish persecution? Where was the chapter about the Irish slaves? And etc., etc. It's just that if you look your own white history, if you study your own history, and you, in those texts that you study, you accept that you've also done bad things. Hey, good job for you, but that doesn't mean that other people whose history you are very unaware of didn't also do bad things. It doesn't mean that only white people are the devil or bad people or whatever. So, whiteness is an arbitrary symbol of power without any inherent essence. Nothing unites all people of different classes, customs, religions and ages who are identified as white except the fact that we don't have to encounter racism. Bullshit, you just said it, Irish encountered racism. And in a way this is actually racism against white people, but we'll come to it later. But so you're writing about you're writing racism against white people articles, and you are saying that white people don't encounter racism. Well, yeah, whatever. Yeah, you're very blind to it when you are actually doing the racist thing yourself. In Finland, we tend to think that our unawareness of race is innocent and produced by the conditions of our geographically peripheral location and our homogeneous isolated demography. But our unawareness of race is not different from the unawareness of race of any white people living anywhere in the world. One of the most poisonous and effective ways in which privilege operates is that it is transparent, invisible to those who enjoy it. Well, one of the most poisonous and effective ways of which privilege operates is to control people, is to make them feel guilty about something they are. It's the same tactic some religions use, or maybe even most of it, or could be even that all of them, and cults use too. There is in Christianity the idea of the original sin. You are born somehow broken, and we as a group, as Christians, can fix it. You just have to pray to our God. Just as feminism thinks that white people and males are broken and they should just repent. They should just very, very well understand how they are privileged and how nothing they can do in the world has any significance because they are just getting what they can from the privilege they have, and they have no possibility of actually as a individual achieving anything. It's a way of controlling other people, and I'm so sad that you have been peddled this shit and you seem to believe it, because I really feel bad for you for believing these things, because they can really fucking mess up your mind. I know it because I've seen so many examples in the world that this is dangerous and toxic ideal that you have and you are peddling here. So let's continue. The neutrality of whiteness is merely the absence of discriminative incidents that make race visible. When we encounter the struggles of other people, also our whiteness starts to become visible to ourselves. In that process, we become of color, and the world isn't simple anymore. I myself really became white only after settling in the US, where for the first time I was handed tools, words and context that made me become aware of my being of color. So I guess you took some gender study classes or some other feminist propaganda classes in the school, and now you think you are right. Okay, well, whatever. That's propaganda. Just please study history of the world and see that other people than white also had slaves. Other people than white also did bad things in the past. But they don't teach you that in those classes, I'm sure. In a gradual process through conversation and reflection, I started to see the way the world responded to my presence, and that response was not neutral. I'm sure, yes, you are persecuted for being a woman, and you are persecuted for, you are privileged for being white, or something like that. What do you call it? Like some kind of like some type of feminism that takes into account everything, everything that can make you a victim, and you can use it to get some good victim points. So, intersectional feminism, yes. So, this is why color blindness is dangerous. It dismisses the only real difference there is, which is that the world speaks to us in different ways. Actually, color blindness is the only thing that can save us right now. Like, we can see from the example of United States that if you don't have color blindness, if you peddle these feminist social justice warrior attitudes, then what happens is that black people seek self-segregation. You can see that in Milwaukee riots, black people attack white people because they bought into this, that white people have some kind of privilege and power, and they can do nothing. It's just in the nature of them to commit crimes, and as an individuals they have no power over it because of slavery 150 years ago or something like that. They are just helpless little victims. Like women are all victims. They don't have self-autonomy. They can do nothing about it. They are just victimized over and over again, and there is no way to fix it except like give more money to women and or black people. Okay, so a year ago, a huge media storm erupted around Rachel Dolezal, a Caucasian American woman who had adopted black identity to such an extent that she represented the National Association for the Advanced Colored People, NAACP, until she was eventually outed by her parents. So this is actually interesting. So whether what she did was just an elaborate form of blackface, cultural appropriation, or a sign of deep personal confusion has been fiercely debated. Yet I do understand the psychological temptation to shed off one's whiteness, to want to discard it like a Confederate flag and start over anew, without all the baggage. But of course you can't just shed off your whiteness and swap it for a black identity, because the very possibility to shift between identities reveals your privilege. Well, if we go with the intersectional feminism, and you can just decide to change from a gender to gender, why can't you decide to change from color to color? But that more interestingly, it is interesting how you frame this. You frame this as that she wanted to get out of some guilt or whatever. And I give you another possibility of framing it. I give you the possibility of framing it that the feminist philosophy has made the world in such a way that pretending to be a woman or pretending to be black can actually give you money benefits. You could even call it privileges. This job position that probably pays pretty fucking well is not open for white people. There are a lot of these kind of opportunities in the world. BBC, for example, have job opportunities just for minorities. There are a lot of privileges like student money, students given stipends, diplomas, money for minorities, for women. You don't have those for whites. You don't have the same for males. So Is it that she just said one's whiteness, or is it that she actually wanted to benefit from the privilege of being a minority? I know it's a crazy idea, but as there are so many people peddling these ideas that the world has gone really, really odd turn. And I, of course, as you cannot read that person's mind, I can't read that person's mind. I can't tell you if you are right in your analysis what happened, and you can't tell me if I'm right or wrong about my analysis of this situation. But there have been actually a couple of these cases that people pretend to be black to get some kind of benefit. And some of these cases it's been some kind of a job that pays. But anyway, let's continue on. In order to dismantle the false order of white supremacy, we must first become white, just as people of color everywhere in the world have had to unveil the lie of racial hierarchy in order to fight for change. So, confess your sins, confess that you are a bad person, that only we can fix you. The only thing that can fix you is to give this kind of a money diploma to minorities, or make a job opportunity just for women or minorities. Just confess your sins so we can control you and get benefits. Okay? Becoming white is not just about taking part in a pro-migration protest or showing support for anti-racist activism, which are important, no doubt. But there is a danger of false identification in thinking that because we are anti-racist, it also makes us non-white. Once you are anti-racist, it becomes all too easy to cease identifying with anything that comes with white privilege. But just what allows white privilege to continue is that no one wants to identify with it. And I'll show you in the end of this video a clip why you shouldn't identify with it, because it is psychologically crushing to identify as white and male, because if you identify as male you should come in terms that all men are rapists and that you have this urge to rape and you need to be taught not to rape, and there is this toxic masculinity and you have to accept that there is something wrong with you, there is this toxic part of you. Total bullshit. Or that you are white and by just being alive you are persecuting the minorities and women and whatever, and like that you should feel guilty for what your ancestors did and pay some money or something to correct that. Bullshit, total bullshit. Becoming white is something far more private and far more difficult to tackle in the collective psychological mindset. And this is another thing. If you are asking for every Finnish person to identify as white, you are a lunatic. Not all the people, or even, okay, I can say many people will, but not nearly all the people will accept this kind of shaming tactic, accept this kind of idea. But let's continue. There has been talk about white guilt, but guilt is active and manageable. Guilt is about one's actions, not about oneself. There is a kind of shame in becoming white. Yes, let's shame the white. That shame is not the mark of the blood of your ancestor, colonial crimes, of being a descendant of a disgraceful past. Becoming white involves a gradual expansion of awareness in one's mind of accomplishments, bravery and talent in one's life being not the result of one's exceptionality but that of privilege. So, basically, bravery and talent in one's life being not result of one's exceptionality but that of privilege. So, if I make $1 million, it's not because I had a good idea, I made a company and earned those money just because I'm white. It's just all of it is just because of my privilege. If I, for example, win some kind of local running contest like Pirkanmaan juoksu or whatever, then it's not because I'm a good runner, it's because I have some white privilege, even if all the other people in that running competition were white, and also that the world's fastest 100-meter runners are all black. but yeah, I have some privilege or something. Total bullshit and very not believable. Like, of course, even if you would buy into this privilege idea, then certainly I have the same privilege as other whites or other white males living here in where I live. So then, of course, the result of accomplishments, bravery, talent, they are because of my exceptionality if all the contestants are with the same privilege. But it's not that. You have to go a bit farther, that nothing individual can do is to break these chains of privilege or do anything, because that would really mess up with your narrative. That the success or talent one might have is merely a sign of succeeding at using the resources one has handed, that ultimately I am not worth what I thought I am. So yeah, let's hammer in the point that everything has to do with the privilege. There's nothing an individual can do. Well, they don't call you Marxist or communist for nothing. There is the class struggle with feminism and everything. So yeah, sure. Nothing an individual can do. You don't have a free will. You just have this collective. Yes. Reparations of any kind mean paying compensation for stolen goods. For that, one needs to accept that the fact of theft. So I read this with a friend, and we discussed this, and he seemed that this was a very reasonable article, at least before we had the discussion. I didn't ask afterwards, but like, if you are claiming reparations that because of colonialism, because of our past, we should pay money to some colonial countries, I don't know, India, Egypt, whatever we whites have colonized in the past, if we should pay some reparations, then surely they would be for those countries, and we could show how they had no chance of really getting ahead because we have abused them until this day, and they haven't had any freedom to negotiate their own trade deals, etc. But no, when we are talking about reparations in the modern day, they are just that there is this systematic racism of black people in America by the police, and we should give money to black people in America who have lived their whole life there, have never experienced any slavery, and just like to find something else to blame. They would like to blame the whiteness, the white men, for their misfortune, not their own actions, because they are totally helpless. There is no way they can ever pull themselves up and do something meaningful or make something out of them. And if they steal or do any kind of violent crimes or whatever, then it's somehow white people's fault because of slavery or something. Yeah, sounds totally plausible. I think this reparations idea should really take off. There is like even a website where white people can log in and pay money for black people for what they want. You can post there that you can give this kind of money or offer your work for something, or then just black people can ask for things from white people, and people who have this type of original sin that they have confessed to their whiteness and are under this kind of type of mind control, then they wanna ease their guilt and just give them money and free stuff. And hey, whatever you do with your free money in our capitalist society, you are free to do, but don't try to turn this into a communism or try to bring those ideals in our society. So, without becoming white and identifying with it on both a personal and political level, white privilege will never end, but will merely morph into a new version of itself. Yes, you want all to politically join your little cult. Seems reasonable, seems totally reasonable. Nothing in our world today reinforces the re-evaluation of one's self-worth this way. Quite the contrary, we are encouraged to believe in individuality and exceptionality as a foundation to our worth. Well, I actually very much disagree with this. Nothing in today's world reinforces the revaluation of one's self-worth. Feminism does, like you can see here. Cultural Marxism, social justice warriors, yes, that does. Christianity does self-worth. You can just, the idea in Christianity that everyone does sin, and you can get free from that. You have to just pray for Jesus for your sins to be forgiven, and they are forgiven. You just have to do this daily, weekly, monthly, whatever. There are a lot of things that reinforces the reevaluation of one's self-worth and individuality. There are a lot of cults, there are a lot of odd people in today's world that want to control you in that way that they promote this evaluation, actually. But yeah, there is nothing that can replace the value one should let go of. No praise for fairness than fairness itself, and that is not highly regarded in today's reality. Bullshit! Bullshit! You have these cocks in every field. I just did a AI threat video about someone who you get this very good feeling for virtual signaling when you tell everyone how good you are and how black people and immigrants can do no harm and do no wrong. You feel so good when you can just announce how good person you are. I just read in, I think, Ilta-Sanomat or Ilta-Lehti some Thomas N. Puske column where he talked about how there was this racist joke like what is white on top and black, white on top and black on the below, and that's society. And what is black on top and white below? That's rape. And how it's horrible joke, and how he's so good person to say that that's a racist bad joke, and the people who say it are racist shits and so that kind of joke should be banned. Don't fucking bullshit me. I'm sure you were having, when you publish this and whenever you peddle these ideas, you feel very good in yourself. You have this very warm feeling of telling everyone how good of a person you are. This what I do does not enjoy it. What I enjoy is people calling me racist and sexist no matter how much proof, evidence or whatever I bring to the table, because it breaks the narrative, it breaks the ideas that they are trying to push on us. But I still think this is a worthwhile thing to do. I still think this is important for me to talk about this, because it seems like no one in Finland is brave enough. Like, please point to me, please send me links to other people who talk like this, who talk against this feminism, cultural Marxism, social justice culture in Finland, because it's certainly coming to Finland right now. So please show me other people who think like me, because I'm sure there are people. I'm sure they might not talk about their ideals because they are afraid of being fired from their job or feeling persecuted in the university or whatever, but I'm sure there are. I'm sure there are. So, it is much easier to educate oneself about black history and feel like a good person than actually question the legitimacy of a grant, business deal, a political nomination or a film role you have been given. So, no political nomination, no business deal, no film role or grant can have, it can have no individual merit that you get it. And I can understand why you think like that, because you think that all men are more privileged than you as a woman or whatever. By the way, sorry if I misread, like, because I'm talking about feminism, I'm talking about she, but I don't actually have any idea what Terike is, it man's or woman's name, but forgive me if I misgendered you. That was not my intention, but yes, I'm sure anything you ever achieved in your life had nothing to do with anything you did or whatever, but I don't believe it. I believe if you are a good individual, you'll get the job. I have never been fired for any job because of my genitals. I've been hired because I have been a good employee. So, it is much easier to speak up against racism in all-white anti-racist groups than to question whether you should enjoy the funding to run that group or publish that outlet in the first place. I think those groups should be disbanded and they should be... those outlets should be also not given money, because if they peddle with racist shit, then they are no better than the people they are trying to fight. And of course, it's much easier to dismiss the reality of racism altogether and to fix your identity on your own struggles and your own efforts and your feeling of being threatened by any rearrangement in the racialized world order. The struggle and economic despair of the white lower classes is a reality too, a reality that leaves a little capacity for solidarity. So for those who benefit from whiteness, even if just a little, the whole notion of race is indeed threatening. Well, I really can't say about that. I don't know enough. The often used word diversity seems to propose the kind of sharing of space between the majority and the margins. Writer Shojumuji points out, let's see who that person is, because you are not mentioning it, so it would be important. So, is there a Wikipedia article? No. Okay. Well, not really much information on that, so don't know about that then. And basically I conclude that maybe nobody important, or then at least you can't find it in the Wikipedia. Points out, however, how the notion of diversity can work rather as a hindrance than a springboard to equality by proposing an order where marginalized groups are included in the dominant narrative instead of decentering the dominant narrative altogether. Being an ally in a process of decolonization of knowledge of societal structures of representations means accepting that whiteness is not a dominant, neither a central perspective. White people, like this is the thing, like, how about talk about how black people slave other black people in Africa, or talk about how Muslims slave white people in Arabian world, or whatever. Like, yes, let's decenter or just replace it with the dominant narrative with some kind of all-inclusive narrative. But please do make it all-inclusive. Please do make it something else than the dominant narrative, and not just that you replace the dominant narrative with the dominant narrative, the same story, the white people have slaved these things, the same narrative, and just paint it bad. You don't change the perspective to other things or to all things. You just have the same perspective, but you somehow conclude that it is bad and it is the only thing bad. Yeah, people are usually interested in themselves, so white male painters, that there are a lot of it, usually paint from the perspective of white males in Europe, and how is that a bad thing, etc. And please do not try to paint that as bad, but rather, if you want, then talk about everything. Talk about also the bad stuff other people do, women, minorities, etc. Because you are being really unfair here, and that is not what you are trying to do. You are not trying to the perspective, the dominant perspective, or frame it into some all-encompassing perspective. You are having the same perspective, you are just painting it bad. White people, Samuchi writes, need to learn to occupy marginal positions and accept the validity of narratives in which white experience is not central. A famous Toni Morrison quote goes, let's see quickly if this is someone a little bit more known. Toni Morrison, she's a United States book writer that has given Nobel Prize for Literature in '93 for first black woman, an American. Cool. So this is actually someone respected and that has something written about her in the internet. So quote goes: when you get to these jobs that you have so brilliantly trained for, just remember that your real job is that you are free, that you need to free somebody else. If you have some power, then your job is to empower somebody else. This is not just a grab bag candy game. So, okay, let's say that I'm an artist in Finland, a male artist, and I sell my paintings for millions. Who do I free and how? Explain this to me. Who do I free and how? Because I think that you can do whatever you want. I'm this capitalist pig. I think you can do whatever you want with your money, and if I get millions by painting pictures, I will probably give some grant that someone else has this also the same chance. Seems reasonable, and I do give money to charity. But just that, how do you actually propose this? Is it that you give your money away, that you open borders, that you let so many people in that you have nothing left, that you give everything away so that you can finally relinquish the white guilt or something? Is that the way? Because Angela Merkel seems to think that, but I don't know. This is a notion of power that is active and dynamic, a force of changing society that does not belong to anyone by default, a notion of power that is and should be a tool for change. So here we go, so tool for change. So you want basically some kind of communist Marxist thing, that everyone that gets some money use their money and power to change this to a fair society in a way that everyone has these quotas and everyone get the same minimal earning and no matter what they do or something like that. I don't know, but it seems like that. If your biggest reason and you want to all your power and money to funnel into this tool for change. So, but like, you can also funnel your money, I think, into the free markets. You can buy and give money to people you like and things that you like, and that's how make the world better. People can then come up with even better products and things and then sell them. So, I don't know. Of course, this is not what our society tells us. Our society tells us that power is a grab bag candy game. Grab bag candy game. What does it mean? I don't know. And that it can and should be owned, protected and stolen. Capitalist ideology is working against any attempts to establish equality. This is why identity politics without class struggle will never be enough. There's no liberation without communality. You mean communism? But okay, let's go with this. So identity politics with class struggle. So you have to see in every case that a woman is fighting from below to the males on top. Like for example, family court. Like it's not like the default parent if a divorce comes who gets the children, custody of the children is woman. But there's a class struggle. The male is oppressing the woman, or that. I've done a video about this, but there was this study in Britain that by statistics men get a lot higher sentence for the same crime and are more often convicted for the same crime as women. No, but women are below and men are above attacking. You really need this class struggle. You really need it even when it's not really there. You want to just stop the women prisons because of let's let all women go free, because class struggle or something, I don't know. So, a major ideological shift needs to take place in order for decolonization to happen in the true sense of the word. If the only thing white people have in common is that they don't encounter racism, I encounter racism a lot. I encountered this idea that you can't be racist against white people, and that kind of racism, I actually deal with it on my channel, in the YouTube. There are a lot of racism against white people going on around here. I actually will link a really good, interesting video in the sources of this video that will tell you about this white racism, so you can just give this white people don't encounter racism a rest. But I'm sure you won't, but anyway, perhaps the only thing that, because it's like the only thing holding your ideology together, the only thing that binds people of color across classes, genders, customs and values together is the experience of it. As we are constantly reminded, speaking over a person is one example of that racism. Sure, I guess let's just take the ability to talk from some people away to benefit some other people, and let me decide who is who. Sounds reasonable. I know a lot about what sexual harassment feels like, or what dismissal of my achievements or my intelligence because I'm a woman feels like, but I don't know what it feels like to be discriminated against because of the color of my skin or my ethnicity. Did you even read your own article? Did you read this? Well, I guess you are blind to your privileges or something. This particular experience I have not experienced. Yes, you have. You wouldn't think of it like that because you think that you can't be racist against white people. You think it's impossible, but yes, you have. If you ever read BuzzFeed or any other feminist articles and Saloon, etc., yes, you have. Now, full of it. So, of my achievement in this business against my this particular experience, I don't know how it feels when you see a chain of generations being affected by that discrimination. I have no first-hand knowledge on how it affects one's identity and personality and choices. I can listen and take for real what I am told. I by the way, I by the way can also the clip I'm really hyping up in the end. I'll show you how it can affect your identity and personality. But anyway, I can listen and take for real what I am told. I know about being white, but the whiteness I was born into was transparent, invisible. The transparency of whiteness strips me too of agency. Yes, you have no agency, no agency at all, because you are a woman or you are a minority. In redefining these relations, it has to thicken and become visible in order for me to articulate what it is and how it feels, and to change how it functions in society from within. I'm not saying that whiteness should again occupy the discourse, but what remains invisibly cannot be removed. The discourse on diversity in Finland is not enough. We need to start talking about whiteness and find articulations for the experience of privilege that for decades have been rendered invisible. All this might read as extremely peculiar to someone living in the US or France or in other country with history of plurality. Did I just read that? It's not like we have, for example, suomenruotsalaiset. It's not like we have Finns-Swedes living in Finland, this kind of minority that even in some places there are so many Swedes living there that the signs are either only in Sweden or Sweden comes first. No, we don't have this history of plurality. You mean we don't have black people living here? But yeah, sure, let's go with that. Finns-Swedes are not minority. You never mentioned them anywhere, so sure. And thus also a common public awareness of these issues. And I know, by the way, why don't you mention Finns-Swedes when I think about it? Because they actually do well. They actually manage their money and are quite rich in our minds. I don't know the numbers, but there is this stereotype of Finnish Swedes being very rich and having all these kind of summer festivals or whatever, and I actually was in one Finnish Swedes summer festival this summer, and there were a lot of good foods there. So yeah, that would go against your narrative, because what? Not all minorities are the same. Oh my god, oh my god. But yeah. Plurality, and that's also common in public affairs. But the Finnish cultural mindset is still that of colonized country, a permanent battleground of power play between Sweden and Russia. Poor, insignificant Finland has spent centuries in subjugation to one or another. After that followed a period of Cold War, during which a country did its best not to make trouble. Finland's national identity was formed around pleasing the superior and being careful not to take sides. We like to cling to the myth of ourselves as the stubborn little David defying the Goliath of Russia in the Second World War, but what might be a more defining feature of the nation's identity is the way it has navigated its way through history and throughout years by a foreign royalty to whoever has held its back. Perhaps this was necessary, but there comes a point where one needs to claim full adulthood and the responsibilities that come with it. 100 years of independence seems long time, but the half-life of collective identities is slow. I think this is actually brilliant, because yes, there is even this term suomettuminen. We had this President Kekkonen, Urho Kalvi Kekkonen, and yeah, I really feel this mindset that we have to be careful about saying bad things about Russia and these things, like, and that we are weak and poor Finland that is in the middle of these two superpowers, Sweden and Russia, who have both exploited our countries in the past. This is actually true, but what I disagree is this part. Perhaps this was necessary, but there comes the point where one needs to claim full adulthood and responsibilities that come with it. 100 years of independence seems a long time. So let me show you a little clip.
Here in America, we are faced with the specter of Black Lives Matter and their supporters, who, in the wake of the incident in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, seem to be beyond reproach. When a young black man flees a traffic stop, points a stolen firearm at a police officer, and is shot by that police officer, the response of the black community is to loot, smash, and burn down property in their own neighborhoods, and, more disturbingly, to openly target white passers-by for violence. You most likely haven't heard of the white people attacked at random, dragged from their cars, and hospitalized for the crime of being white and existing near angry black people.
If they white, if they white person, they white, get their ass. Hold that bitch up. Hey, they beating up every white person. They jumping every white person. Man, no white person come down Sherman. He white. Beat this shit, bitch. Hey, look. White boy. They beating up every white person. They beating up every. They make the squad cars leave. They beat somebody's ass. Look, they beat somebody's ass. Y'all look, look, bro, look. Ooh, look, y'all, look.
I feel a similar sense of vindication in the wake of this incident as well, as I've said for the past couple of years that Black Lives Matter have always been a hate movement. They have now leaked into Europe and are exhibiting similar behavior there. Just a couple of weeks ago, they torched a village in France and held a protest in the United Kingdom in which several people, including a police officer, were stabbed. The day after the incident in Milwaukee, the sister of the man shot by police issued this profound statement for the cameras.
On everything! Tell his mama y'all sorry for her loss! Burning down shit ain't gonna help nothing! Y'all burning down shit we need in our community! Take that shit to the suburbs! Burn that shit down! We need our shit! We need our weed! I don't wear it, but we need it!
CNN had the good sense to cut this clip mere milliseconds before she says, "Take that shit to the suburbs," so that they could report it as a call for peace rather than the call for violence that it was. This incident amounts to a race riot. It's akin to a small-scale reenactment of 1992 Los Angeles. A Milwaukee city alderman responded to the chain of events in this fashion.
Something has to be done here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin to address these issues. The black people of Milwaukee are tired. They're tired of living under this oppression. This is their existence. This is their life. This is the life of their children. Now, what have happened tonight may have not been right. I'm not justifying that. But no one can deny the fact that there's problems, racial problems, here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
May have not been right. Way to condemn racist rioting. But yes, so my point is just that the slavery in United States was 150 years ago. It ended 150 years ago. So when are black people gonna grow up? When are they gonna grow up? When is half-time of the collective identity is low, I know, but when are they gonna grow up and own up their own mistakes and racist behavior? Because if you don't have color blindness, that is what happens. Those people really believe that white people are privileged and that the white police system is racist. They believe it in so hard that they're just itching and waiting for something to happen, and when finally a black cop shoots a black criminal, they go there, burn their own shit down and attack white people. Because that's good thing, I guess. And please don't bring that BLM hate groups type of stuff to Finland. I know they are already in Sweden and England, London and such, but please don't bring that hate group shit to us. We have our own problems. What is more, Finland does not have colonial past of its own. The Finnish state's relationship with the indigenous Sami people, Saamelaiset, whose culture was suffocated by the forced assimilation policies and whose lands and waters were taken without any negotiation or consent, and who still face state-condoned appropriation of their heritage, is still unresolved with no apologies given. There has never been time during our country's existence that we haven't benefited from the rule of the colonial powers and the crimes that have built the wealth of the current day Europe. Those crimes continue today in the many forms of global capitalism fueled and made possible by the widespread practices of labor that are rooted in geographical and racial discrimination. Finland needs to step out of the false recognition of itself as the underdog and take responsibility for deconstructing the structures of white privilege that come with the order that it has inherited from the colonial past of Europe and from its own history. The people who hoist swastika flags up flagpoles at refugee centers or throw fireworks at buses in KKK robes deserve no apologies. Has there actually been in Finland KKK people in KKK robes? I kinda follow this closely. I've never heard about it. Citation needed. No explanation or understanding. So deserve no apologies, explanation or understanding. These are acts of racist hatred and fascism and should be tried and condemned far more severely. That is mandatory in current currency. I think so, and I think also that in United States acts of violence like I showed you should be also condemned. Those are acts of racist hatred and fascism and should be tried to condemn far more severely than with the current policy. Black power is not something good and inherently good and different from white power, The failure to condemn these outrageous acts by mainstream politicians, the failure of condemning Black Lives Matter acts by feminists and people like you, this all-white middle-aged man who grew up in safe, seemingly homogeneous Finland where racial stereotypes were considered harmless and having nothing to do with us in the symptom of the lack of post-colonial discourse and the absence of white identity in Finnish society. I emphasize, The absence of the recognition of the prevailing problem of white supremacy and colonial West-centrism in global politics. These people do not recognize racism for what it is because they still have not and still refuse to become white. We'll come back to, this is gonna end soon, but we'll come to becoming white in the end, like I told you. It would be idealistic to think that even God-forbidden little country such as Finland could go from homogeneous and oblivious racism to multicultural cosmopolitan coexistence, skipping racism together. Yeah, I think if we are gonna go there, then the racism might be ahead, and it might look a lot different than you think about it. Think for it because of the current political climate and how media paints these things. But yeah, I agree with this, but it doesn't mean that you get to go past and paint it more racist than it is, basically. Of course it cannot, because Finland was never not racist, just as it was never not part of a global order that has benefited from racially and ethnically discriminative and abusive practices, and it cannot be a racist country before acknowledging this. And before going through the same process that other colonial powers have with different degrees of success and failure gone through. Addressing hate speech on all fronts of society is a necessary act, but if it's not backed up by a deeper understanding of any certain groups that are targeted and are the historical path leading to where we are now, it does not have the power to truly transform society. Addressing hate speech, I'm probably sure you would think that just disagreeing with you is hate speech. I'm pretty sure that is what you think of hate speech. But anyway, we and now I speak of the current all-white establishment and the native white lower middle class that feels threatened by plurality and the whole notion of racism, but also of the liberal left that stands in solidarity with minorities and anti-racist movements. Well, I think what the left stands in solidarity is the racism of the bigotry of low expectations, that they are very racist against black people and women, because they think that, for example, black people or other minorities, they can't be racist because, come on, they can't think that their race is superior. Come on, they don't have this slavery past, etc. They can't have any real pride in their race. Come on, we have this culturally dominant white narrative. It's the only truth, and there cannot be a black person who believes that they are superior to a white person. That is just impossible, because black people are like babies. No matter how much crime or hatred or whatever they do, they can never do no wrong, because they never really had a choice, because there was slavery a long time ago, or because there is racism in cops, and that somehow justifies attacking white people. You know, it's the same. As you think of females, that they can never have agency, they can never be better than a man in any case. They are always fighting in this class struggle from below to up, where the males are, and on top of that pyramid, the white males who only do horrible things and are bad, but then minorities and women can do no wrong. That is racist. That is very racist, because I actually respect women, I respect minorities to think that they have autonomy. They can also do things. They can do good things and they can do bad things. And I judge their deeds and actions in an individual level. And I condemn racist actions like I showed you there. And I condemn if white people do racist actions also. I'm not saying that the KKK is a really good thing. I'm just saying I don't see it in Finland. Anyway, so equality has always been the core. We must first become white in order to shed off that whiteness and to enter a world where equality and global justice become something we can actually discuss. Being anti-racist isn't enough. We need to be explicitly anti-white supremacy, and that puts us all in that equation. Equality has always been the core ideal of the Finnish welfare state, but at that time the welfare state was taking shape. Equality was falsely identified with sameness, in line with the myth of a homogeneous, tightly knit nation. We have seen where this line of reasoning takes us. It takes us to color blindness, and it's a good thing. Now, luckily, the future of our country will be in the hands of the generations that have grown up in a more open and more heterogeneous society. It is time to dismiss the false myth and realize the ideal of equality in its full, true potential. The first step forward is in confronting the reality today. And there are lot of these things to read, and I will maybe look into them. There's actually this guy I was looking for, we can see. So this is some black blogger, I guess. But maybe if there's something interesting in these citations here, I might go back to those if there's something really interesting. But okay, so this is just my take on the text, and you are free to make your take, and please disagree with me, tell me where I'm wrong, tell me where this is right, everything. Let's have a civil discussion. This is very interesting, but I'll just leave you with this warning. If you buy into this that you should accept your whiteness and come in terms with your whiteness, be very careful that you don't end up like this.
The next vote up is Royce Mann.
Do not become like him.
My name is Royce, and my poem is titled White Boy Privilege. Dear women, I'm sorry. Dear black people, I'm sorry. Dear Asian Americans, dear Native Americans, dear immigrants who come here seeking a better life, I'm sorry. Dear everyone who isn't a middle or upper class white boy, I'm sorry. I have started life at the top of a ladder while you were born on the first rung. I say now that I would change places with you in an instant, but if given the opportunity, would I? Probably not, because to be honest, being privileged is awesome. I'm not saying that you and me on different rungs of the ladder is how I want it to stay. I'm not saying that any part of me has for a moment even liked it that way. I'm just saying that I fucking love being privileged, and I'm not ready to give that away. I love it because I can say fucking, and not one of you is attributing that to the fact that everyone with my skin color has a dirty mouth. I love it because I don't have to spend an hour every morning putting on makeup to meet other people's standards. I love it because I can worry about what kind of food is on my plate instead of whether or not there will be food on my plate. I love it because when I see a police officer, I see someone who's on my side. To be honest, I'm scared of what it would be like if I wasn't on the top rung, if the tables were turned and I didn't have my white boy privilege safety blankie to protect me. If I lived a life lit by what I lack, not what I have. If I lived a life in which when I failed, the world would say, told you so. If I lived the life that you live. When I was born, I had a success story already written for me. You were given a pen and no paper. I've always felt that that's unfair, but I've never dared to speak up because I've been too scared. Well, now I realize that there's enough blankie to be shared. Everyone should have the privileges I have. In fact, they should be rights instead. Everyone's story should be written, so all they have to do is get it read. Enough said. No, not enough said. It is embarrassing that we still live in a world in which we judge another person's character by the size of their paycheck, the color of their skin, or the type of chromosomes they have. It is embarrassing that we tell our kids that it is not their personality, but instead those same chromosomes that get to dictate what color clothes they wear and how short they must cut their hair. But most of all, it is embarrassing that we deny this, that we claim to live in an equal country in an equal world. We say that women can vote, Well, guess what? They can run a country, own a company, and throw a nasty curveball as well. We just don't give them the chance to. I know it wasn't us 8th grade white boys who created this system, but we profit from it every day. We don't notice these privileges, though, because they don't come in the form of things we gain, but rather the lack of injustices that we endure. Because of my gender, I can watch any sport on TV and feel like that could be me one day. Because of my race, I can eat at a fancy restaurant without the waitstaff expecting me to steal the silverware. Thanks to my parents' salary, I go to a school that brings my dreams closer instead of pushing them away. Dear white boys, I'm not sorry. I don't care if you think the feminists are taking over the world or the Black Lives Matter movement has gotten a little too strong, because that's bullshit. I get that change can be scary, but equality shouldn't be. Hey white boys, it's time to act like a woman, to be strong and make a difference. It's time to let go of that fear. It's time to take that ladder and turn it into a bridge.
Hey white boys, if you are listening, it's time to act like a woman. Well, I don't know. But I don't know about that, but I feel pity for him really, actually. And if you believe this shit, I also feel pity for you. Grow up.